You're still here? It's over. Go home.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, you're probably feeling a massive sense of deja vu right now because we're talking about the Return to World event again. Wasn't that a thing at like the end of 2023? Yeah, and for those of you who aren't aware, it still is, and that's the crazy thing that I really just sort of want to sit down and talk about today. This all started a number of months ago, right around the announcement of Monster Hunter Wilds. Capcom followed this by quote-unquote hosting the Return to World event, which, to be quite frank, was them saying, hey, everyone should go play Monster Hunter World, again, just because they want to. Followed by official streams from Capcom themselves, going through early game of Monster Hunter World, and also simultaneous blog posts that they release full of tips for players that are approaching the game for the first time. Essentially, this was being doubled up, both as an excuse to give lots of information for new players to actually come in and try and bring new fans in with the Wilds trailer at the Game Awards and all the hype that caused, but also just as a more focused outlet. They knew that Monster Hunter fans would be super excited after the announcement and the trailer dropped for the new game, so they said, hey, why don't you all just go play World? And of course, all of these people, suddenly feeling a welling up of Monster Hunter love, are more than willing to oblige. But the big thing is just how goddamn good of a game World and Iceborne are, so now before we dive into the meat of it, let's look at how this has gone. In November of last year, before all this started happening, we were down to around 40,000 concurrent player base on Steam. Not bad at all, but not top tier either. The Return to World event started and then just kept building and building, and we hit the highest peak that we've had in almost 4 years, which is around 163,000 right at the turn of the new year. Concurrent players, again, only on PC and Steam specifically, so this is still only a portion of the full player base, but it's a good representation of the comparison. The player base grew by more than 3 times from this happening, right? And with most games, even with this kind of mass resurgence, even if it did happen for other games, people would move on after like a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month at an absolute stretch if it wasn't like a full-on MMO. But it is now the beginning of May, and the 24-hour peak on a weekday, mind you, which is less than you'll get on the weekend, was nearly 100,000 still. Still around 60% retention on that massive surge of player base now over 4 months later, 4 goddamn months on a game that was already 6 years past its original release, 4 years nearly since its last time it actually released content. And to me, this shows a couple of major things. First, World and then of course Iceborne as well are just ridiculously good games with an insane amount of actual good content within them. Obviously, I already knew this myself. I basically lived in that game for a number of years. I have thousands of hours, but sometimes when you love something that much, it can feel like maybe you're the anomaly, right? Like maybe it just happens to cater to you specifically more than most people. But then you see the initial popularity of Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, and then not only the ridiculous success of this Return to World initiative in general, but also the genuine longevity it seems to be having is absolutely nuts. Again, we are now 6 years after the release of the base game, and Capcom has shown themselves capable of tripling the player base overnight regardless of that, and not in an inconsequential way either, because again, it has lasted now 4 months. And the thing is, as much as I do love this just from the perspective of celebrating Monster Hunter as a series, especially in its 20th anniversary year, looking at its success and just being proud of the thing that we all love, that's not even the biggest part of this for the community as a whole, because now we've reached a special point where the people still involved in the Return to World event have, well, reached the endgame sections of Iceborne. What this has done is gather even more people, because it means right now, the game has a more populated multiplayer community in its endgame than it has had literally since before it stopped releasing new content at the end of 2020. Yep, you heard me right, 2020, at which point it dropped down to around 50,000 concurrent users on Steam, and in that general vicinity it stayed for years until this specific announcement of Monster Hunter Wilds, and this effort from Capcom themselves as well, of course. The thing is, almost in a show of solidarity, sort of, Capcom has also been keeping up the initiative of releasing the blog posts and the streams. They are keeping up the streams going through the game one step at a time with different guests every time, keeping up their blogs just absolutely chock full of tips for newbies or just, you know, guides for the creatures they'll be seeing along the way, for just a whole host of different topics along the way to help you out with your early Monster Hunter experience. And what is fun for me too is that they're trying to go about this in a nicely paced manner. A lot of small tips to begin with, a barrage of tinier things that you can adjust to, but now over time, the blogs have been pushing further into the game, and they've been much further spread out from each other as well, because they've been focused on larger topics of further into the game things, and with a fairly large amount of depth too. And now we've reached a point of, well, reaching the Elder's Recess and high rank within base world. It's crazy as it is to say, 4 months later, we've reached that point, but this includes a full write-up on all of the elders of base world that live in this region, which is pretty neat to see too. Honestly, I'm just really genuinely happy for Monster Hunter as a whole. I love the series. I love World especially as an entry. It was my first journey into the series, and it is still my favorite to this day. I still think base world is actually better than Iceborne. I know, say what you will. And it is great to see the game that I started with, the game that I love the most in the series, being as successful as it is even now, even at this point, because every time something like this happens, it puts attention on the series, and attention means it might get more investors, and investors mean budget. Budget means just more opportunities for the developers to actually create growth for the series, to actually create new mechanics, invest in more man hours and technology they actually be able to put together to make the game better, to actually reach their dream of what Monster Hunter could be. I mean, obviously it is still very early times as we only have the one trailer so far, but we've all seen the announcement trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds like hundreds of times already, right? And am I alone in that? Is there even a single one among us, though, who sees this trailer and thinks that this is going to be a pretty standard generational jump from one Monster Hunter game to another? Because to me, this is looking like at least as big a gap as we had going from the 4th generation to Monster Hunter World. It looks like they are wanting to evolve a massive amount using the extra just budget. Using the extra just sort of space that they've been given due to the success of the 5th gen games. The ability to do that is entirely because of the way that the games have gone, specifically from things like World and Iceborne, especially as this was sort of the genesis of popularity coming into the Monster Hunter series. So it all just sort of shows this beautiful cycle, and it again even results in great things for the players, even in the short term, just in the sense of the genuinely active and friendly player base that is currently active for World and Iceborne Endgame multiplayer right now, for again the first time in genuinely years, which makes it just an ideal time for anyone to get back into it, or not even just get back into it, even launch into World and Iceborne in the first place for your first time to just check it out, because there's lots of people around to help if you want it, and even official dev-made blog posts telling you how to deal with stuff. Even now, more than 4 months after we hit our peak concurrent users since 2020, it's still kicking off. It's still big. It may not be quite at that peak again, but it's so much larger than it has been genuinely for years, even now. It's a simple topic, really. I don't have much else to say about this. I'm just enjoying this moment, really. I'm relishing in it, and I thought that I'd bring you all in to relish in it with me, to think and dream about the future of Monster Hunter as a series and our hopes for what it can be, while also just getting to sort of revel in the successes for now. And of course, as a notice that, hey, if you are someone who's been wanting to play Iceborne recently, maybe you've been getting that itch again recently, but you just don't want to start from the beginning, instead you'd rather just go from the character that you made years and years ago, well, the endgame scene is currently popping off right now and just begging for even more people to get involved. Use your old characters, make new characters, it doesn't matter, just join in, because there are so many people, so many hunts going on that have slots, so don't be shy. Shove your face in there and get hunting. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and of course leave any thoughts of your own on any of this down in the comments below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.